To U.S. aircraft carriers, over 10,000 American sailors, sitting in the Persian Gulf right now, directly in Iran's crosshairs. And tonight, Russia is telling Iran exactly where they are. This is not a theory. This is not a rumor. This is confirmed by 4 U.S. intelligence officials, and the White House cannot deny it. Vladimir Putin, the man Donald Trump has spent months trying to negotiate with. Man the White House has tried to separate from the Iran crisis. That man is right now feeding targeting data to America's enemy, data that could help Iran kill American sailors. Stay with me, because what is happening in the next 72 hours could change everything. To understand what Russia just did, you have to understand what America just did. On February 28, 2026, just 10 days ago, the United States and Israel launched the most devastating joint military strike since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. The operation was called Epic Fury. B-2 stealth bombers, F-22 Raptors, Tomahawk missiles fired from Arleigh-Burke-class destroyers. And at the center of it all, 2 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, the USS Abraham Lincoln and the USS Gerald or Ford, 2 carrier strike groups, over 16 warships, more than 10,000 combat-ready sailors and airmen, assembled in the Arabian Sea and the Mediterranean. This was the largest U.S. naval force assembled in the Middle East since the beginning of Operation Iraqi Freedom. And the target? Iran. The strikes killed Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. They targeted nuclear facilities, radar systems, command infrastructure. The message from Washington was clear. Iran's era of nuclear defiance is over, but Iran didn't lay down. Iran fired back. Ballistic missiles rained down on U.S. bases across the region. The 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain was struck by an Iranian drone. American service members were killed. The war, a real war between the United States and Iran, had begun. And that's when Russia made its move. Explosions light up the Tehran skyline. Iranian state television goes dark. Intercepts later show Iran's military scrambling, their radar networks knocked offline, their air defense command partially blinded by precision American strikes. Iran's own satellite constellation is limited. They operate fewer than a dozen military-grade surveillance satellites, nowhere near enough to track 16 American warships. Moving across millions of square miles of open ocean and Gulf waters, Iran's generals face a terrifying problem. They want to strike back at the carriers, but they cannot find them. USS Abraham Lincoln, carrying F/A-18 Super Hornets and F-35C stealth fighters, is somewhere in the Arabian Sea. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier, with a $13 billion price tag, is operating in the Mediterranean. Both surrounded by destroyers armed with up to 96 Tomahawk cruise missiles each. Iran knows these ships are out there. But they are blind. So they make a phone call. Within hours of the strike's beginning, according to 4 U.S. intelligence officials, Russia begins transmitting targeting data to Iran, not a trickle. It's described by one American official as a pretty comprehensive effort. What kind of data? The exact locations of U.S. warships, the flight paths of American aircraft, the positions of radar systems, early warning infrastructure, and command and control posts across the region. Russia has this data because Russia has something Iran does not, an advanced satellite reconnaissance network, the same network they have spent for years perfecting over Ukraine, tracking troop movements, identifying armor positions, coordinating strikes. Now they are turning it on the United States Navy, and suddenly Iran's strikes become terrifyingly precise. Military analysts watching the attack patterns notice something alarming. Military expert Dara Massakat at the Carnegie Endowment notes that Iran is making very precise hits on early warning radars and going after command and control in a targeted, surgical way that Iran's military has never demonstrated before. These are not random revenge strikes. These are coordinated, intelligence-guided attacks. And the intelligence is coming from Moscow. The Washington Post breaks the story. 3 U.S. officials confirm Russia is feeding Iran targeting data on American warships and aircraft. The Pentagon goes quiet. The White House tries to downplay it. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt steps to the podium and says the intelligence sharing, paraphrasing, is not making any difference because we are completely decimating them. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, in an interview on CBS 60 Minutes, says the U.S. is tracking everything and factoring it into battle plans. He says, "The American people can rest assured their commander-in-chief is well aware of who's talking to who." President Trump himself, when a Fox News reporter asks him about it directly, calls the question stupid. But here's the thing. The White House does not deny it. They do not say Russia is not doing this. They just say it isn't working. That tells you everything. NBC News publishes a follow-up report with 4 sources. The intelligence sharing is confirmed again. This time there's new detail. The data Russia is providing includes not just ship positions, but radar system locations, communication relay positions, and logistics flow, the supply chain keeping the American war machine running. Russia isn't just telling Iran where the ships are. Russia is building Iran a targeting map. Think about what that means. Every ship that moves, every F-A-18 that takes off from the Abraham Lincoln's flight deck, every Tomahawk that fires from a destroyer, Russia through its spy satellites is watching and reporting. Ukraine's drone experts, who have spent 3 years developing countermeasures against this exact Russian surveillance network, are now reportedly being rushed to protect U.S. bases in Jordan. Ukraine, the country Russia is fighting, is helping America defend against Russia's intelligence operations. Let that sink in for a moment. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, appears on NBC's Meet the Press. Behind him, draped in black, hangs a portrait of the late Supreme Leader Khomeini. The anchor asks him directly, is Russia providing Iran with intelligence on U.S. warship positions? Araghchi does not say no. He calls the Russian partnership very good and says it will continue. He does not deny it. That same day, the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov is asked whether Russia has provided any military or intelligence assistance to Iran. He refuses to comment. The Kremlin says only that it is in dialogue with Iranian leadership and will continue this dialogue. Another NAN denial. And now, on March 10th, 2026 today, the question burning through every intelligence agency, every war room, every naval command center is this: how much damage has Russia's intelligence already caused? And what happens next? Let's talk tactics. Because what Russia is doing here is more sophisticated and more dangerous than most people realize. Russia has spent 4 years in Ukraine developing what military analysts call a kill chain, the sequence of finding a target, identifying it, tracking it, and destroying it. They built this kill chain using a combination of satellite imagery, signals intelligence, and drone reconnaissance. Now they are handing the end product, the targeting data, to Iran. Here's why that matters for the U.S. Navy specifically. An aircraft carrier doesn't move quietly. The USS Gerald R. Ford is 1,106 feet long, displaces over 100,000 tons of water, and generates a massive radar signature. But the ocean is enormous. Without satellite coverage, finding a moving carrier strike group in real time is like finding a specific car on every highway in America simultaneously. Russia can do that. Russia's military satellite constellation includes GLONASS navigation satellites, Persona and Barzem electro-optical reconnaissance satellites, and Lotus's SIGINT satellites designed specifically to intercept radar and communication emissions from naval vessels. When Russia shares that data with Iran, they are giving Iran the ability to do something it fundamentally cannot do on its own: find and fix the position of U.S. carriers with enough precision to target them with ballistic missiles. Iran's Shahab-3 and Emad ballistic missiles have ranges exceeding 1,000 kilometers. Iran's Fotu 110 precision missiles can hit within 10 meters of a target. If Iran knows exactly where the carrier is, courtesy of Russian satellites, those weapons become existential threats. The last time a U.S. aircraft carrier was struck in combat was World War II. If Iran managed to hit one now, it would be the single most catastrophic military event since Pearl Harbor. This is the question everyone is asking. Why would Putin risk direct confrontation with the United States by helping Iran target American warships? The answer is strategic, cold, and completely rational from Russia's perspective, and it has 3 parts. Part 1, distraction. While every American military analyst, intelligence asset, and news organization is focused on the Persian Gulf, Russia is advancing in Ukraine. Senior Russian source told Reuters. The escalation in and around Iran and the Gulf is already diverting attention from the war in Ukraine. That's just a fact. Everything else is just emotion about a fallen ally. Russia doesn't need Iran to win. Russia just needs America to be busy. Part 2, payback. The United States has been providing Ukraine with battlefield intelligence, satellite imagery, signals, intercepts, targeting data for 4 years. Russian soldiers are dying in Ukraine in part because of American intelligence. Helping Iran target American assets is Russia's way of saying, "You gave Ukraine the tools to kill our soldiers. We'll give Iran the tools to kill yours." Part 3. Economic Windfall. With us as Israeli strikes hammering Iran and the region in chaos, global oil prices have surged. Russia, whose economy runs on oil exports, is seeing a massive boom in demand. The conflict is literally funding Russia's war machine. Every day the war continues is another day of Russian oil revenue. This is Putin playing chess while everyone else plays checkers. He doesn't need to fire a single missile, just needs to hand Iran a map. The White House's current posture suggests Washington may simply accept Russia's intelligence sharing as an irritant and move on. Defense Secretary Hegseth says they're tracking everything. The administration's position seems to be, "We know we're compensating, and Iran is still losing." If this scenario plays out, Russia pays no price. The precedent is set. A nuclear superpower can help an enemy target American forces with zero consequence. That changes the rules of engagement for every future conflict America ever fights. Some voices inside the Pentagon and on Capitol Hill are calling for direct action. Options include sanctioning Russian satellite operators, deploying electronic warfare assets to jam Russian intelligence transmissions to Iran, or most dramatically confronting Putin directly with an ultimatum. Trump has previously shown willingness to deal with Putin on Ukraine. The question is whether he views this intelligence sharing as a genuine betrayal, or whether he still sees a path to a grand bargain with Moscow. A direct confrontation risks something no one wants: a proxy war between the US and Russia that stops being a proxy war. The most dangerous scenario. Russian intelligence improves Iran's targeting enough that a US warship takes a direct hit. American sailors die. Congress demands retaliation, not just against Iran, but against Russia. At that point, the world is looking at a direct military confrontation between two nuclear powers. This is the scenario that keeps admirals awake at night. The scenario that no one in Washington wants to say out loud. But the possibility is real, and it gets more real every hour that Russia keeps feeding Iran targeting data. In the grand chessboard of global politics, a new and formidable alliance is taking shape, one that could redefine the international order for decades to come. We're talking about a potential military axis forming between Russia, Iran, and China. This isn't just a headline, it's a seismic shift with profound implications for global power dynamics, specifically for the long-standing dominance of the United States. For years, the world operated under a largely unipolar system, with America at its helm, but the winds are changing. Let's break down how this emerging bloc is challenging that very foundation. It all starts with shared interests and a common adversary. Moscow, Tehran, Beijing all view the United States and its network of alliances as the primary obstacle to their regional ambitions and global influence. They feel constrained by a US-led system that they believe doesn't serve their interests. Economic sanctions, political pressure, and military encirclement are common grievances that bind these three powers together. This shared frustration has evolved from simple diplomatic alignment into something much more tangible: military cooperation. Let's look at the Russia-Iranian connection first. This partnership has been supercharged by the conflict in Ukraine. Iran has become a crucial military supplier for Russia, providing thousands of Shahed drones that have played a significant role on the battlefield. This isn't just a one-off transaction. In return, Iran is reportedly gaining access to advanced Russian military technology, including fighter jets like the Su-35 and sophisticated air defense systems. This quid pro quo elevates Iran's military capabilities from a regional threat to a much more formidable force. It's fundamentally altering the security landscape of the Middle East. For Russia, it's a lifeline that allows it to sustain its war effort despite Western sanctions. For Iran, it's a golden opportunity to modernize its aging arsenal and deter potential attacks from the US or its allies. Now, let's bring China into the picture. China's role is more complex and, in many ways, the most critical piece of the puzzle. While Beijing has been more cautious publicly, its no-limits partnership with Russia is undeniable. Economically, China has become Russia's most important trading partner, buying its energy and selling it everything from consumer goods to dual-use technology that can support the war machine. Militarily, the two nations have been conducting increasingly ambitious joint naval and air exercises. not just near their borders but across the globe. These drills are more than just photo ops. They are practical rehearsals for integrated operations, sending a clear signal of their combined strength. They are learning to fight together, coordinating command structures, and standardizing procedures. This interoperability is the bedrock of any true military alliance. So what happens when you combine Russia's vast natural resources and battle-hardened military, Iran's strategic location and powerful proxy networks, and China's industrial might and technological prowess? You get a bloc that can challenge American power on multiple fronts simultaneously. Imagine a scenario where a crisis erupts in Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and the Taiwan Strait at the same time. This is the nightmare scenario for us military planners. It's a strategy of exhaustion designed to stretch American resources, attention, political will to their breaking point. The U.S. military, while powerful, is not configured to fight three major conflicts at once. This multi-front challenge is the core strategic threat posed by this emerging axis. This alliance isn't just about military hardware. It's also a battle of narratives and economic systems. All three countries are actively working to create parallel international institutions that are not dominated by the West. Think of China's Belt and Road Initiative, the expansion of the BRICS bloc, and efforts to de-dollarize international trade. They are building an alternative economic and political ecosystem where the U.S. dollar is no longer king and Western-led institutions like the World Bank and IMF have less sway. By creating their own systems for trade, finance, and diplomacy, they aim to insulate themselves from American sanctions and build a world order that is more favorable to their authoritarian models of governance. The challenge to American dominance is therefore threefold. First, there's the direct military challenge. The combined forces of Russia, China, and Iran present a conventional military threat that the U.S. has not faced since the Cold War. Their growing coordination means that a regional conflict could quickly escalate into a global one. Second, there's the economic challenge. By promoting alternatives to the dollar and Western financial systems, they are chipping away at a key pillar of American power. The ability to levy sanctions is one of America's most potent foreign policy tools, and its effectiveness diminishes in a de-dollarized world. Third, and perhaps most importantly, there is the ideological challenge. This axis represents a powerful coalition of authoritarian states, pushing back against the liberal democratic order that the U.S. has championed since the end of World War II. They offer a different model of governance, one that prioritizes state control and national sovereignty over individual freedoms and human rights. Their success could embolden other authoritarian regimes around the world and lead to a further erosion of democratic norms globally. So, how is the United States responding? Washington is certainly not standing still. The U.S. is strengthening its own alliances, from NATO in Europe to the Quad comprised in the U.S., Japan, Australia, and India in the Indo-Pacific. It's also bolstering security partnerships with countries like the Philippines and South Korea and deepening its ties with allies in the Middle East. The strategy is to build a counter-coalition of like-minded democracies and partners to contain the influence of this new axis. Furthermore, the U.S. is investing heavily in new military technologies like AI, cyber warfare, and hypersonic missiles to maintain its qualitative edge over its rivals. However, the challenge is immense. The era of unquestioned American supremacy is over. We are entering a new, more dangerous, and less predictable multipolar world. The decisions made in Washington, Moscow, Beijing, and Tehran in the next few years will shape the course of the 21st century. This isn't just a geopolitical game for experts to debate. It has real-world consequences for global stability, trade, and the future of international relations. The rise of this military axis forces us to ask tough questions about the role of American power and the kind of world we want to live in. It's a complex and evolving story, and one that we will continue to follow closely. What are your thoughts on this new global alignment? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you found this analysis insightful, be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the forces shaping our world.